Just like Socrates gives an argument for why we do not need to be afraid of death, and it's a constructive dilemma argument, Epicurus does the same thing. But it's not just like it. It's modified from the constructive dilemma form in a different way. And some aspects of the argument are rather different. So let's look at the argument. Here's the argument form, using P, Q, R as generic symbols for any proposition. The argument form is either P or Q. If P, then R. If Q, then R. Therefore, R. So the argument is this: either we are dead yet, or we are not dead. If we are dead, then we do not exist anymore, and so death is not affecting us. If we are not yet dead, then death is not affecting us. Either way, death is not affecting us. And so death is nothing to be worried about. So Epicurus used this argument and urged his followers to use this argument to consider the nature of death and understand that death is nothing to us in order to remove anxiety. Epicurus, like various other ancient philosophers, is very interested in removing anxiety from our lives, banishing anxiety, dispelling it from the soul. And this is part of how he does it. He observes that we are afraid of death and we are afraid of what might come after death. And so he gives us, among other considerations, this argument and urges us to consider it, to understand that either death is with us or it is not. If it is, we are not there anymore. And so death is nothing to us. But if it's not there yet, and so it's nothing to us. So either way, death is nothing to us. Now, one way this is like Socrates is that there's an optimism about non-existence. Socrates had said in the Apology that the nearest equivalence we have in our experience to non-existence is a really good night's sleep. And most of us can appreciate that. We don't think we get enough of those things at night. Well, Epicurus is like Socrates, similarly optimistic about non-existence. He thinks it seems just fine. One major difference from Socrates, though, is he's not so optimistic about the idea of life after death. In Epicurus' thinking, the idea of life after death is a source of anxiety, not a source of comfort. He seems to give some credibility to the argument Socrates, in the Apology at least, is not so concerned with. The idea that if there's life after death, we have reason to fear the wrath of the gods. And so Epicurus always tells us the gods don't care about you, and there is no life after death, and this is a good thing. It's meant to banish anxiety in Epicurus' way of thinking. So they both have arguments that we should not fear death, and they're both modified constructive dilemma arguments, and they're both interesting, and they're both optimistic about non-existence, but there are some significant differences on the question of life after death and whether that's a good thing or not.